Hi, it's Lucy from Statzy, and I'm here for another Stat Sprint interview video on lists and leads. And today we've got Stephen Prattley, and Stephen and I have just been discussing how long he's been doing email marketing for, and we decided it's basically when email was invented. So Stephen's actually works for the conversion company, so his thing is actually doing campaigns, funnels, email campaigns for selling digital products, for selling training, for selling all sorts of different things. And his speciality is knowing how to get those lists to convert into paying customers. So that's why he's here today, because obviously we're here looking at how to get not just more people on your list, but to convert more of those into leads and ideally into sales. So we are going to be using the F word today. We will be talking funnels, and Stephen apparently is going to talk to us about monkeys as well. So I'm looking forward to that.
Bananas.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us, Stephen.
Hi, Lucy. Thanks for having me on.
So you've got a few slides, I think, that you're going to take us through, because some of this is quite visual, and we want to see, how things work together. So I'm just going to let Stephen drive the slides, and I'm just going to pipe up with any questions or clarifications we might need along the way. So
Brilliant.
show us your monkeys.
Okay. Right. Let me just share my screen there. Okay. Is that all good? You can see that on your end?
Perfect.
Great stuff. Good. Okay. So what I wanted to talk people through today is just a little bit about, like you say, the F word, which is the much aligned marketing funnel. But I've given it the subtitle, How to Sell Bananas to Monkeys, because I want to talk through a little bit about the kind of background theory and principles to marketing funnels and the reasons why they get screwed up so badly by so many marketers. Oops. So I'm going to talk through a little bit of theory around funnels and what makes good funnels and bad funnels. The reason why you probably hate 99% of all marketing funnels. How to catch a monkey. So what this is all about is really about how the most kind of primitive parts of your mind actually react to marketing messages and anything that's either new or interesting or scary. And I'm going to show you an example campaign of where we kind of use some of these, put some of this theory into action to help, keep people's attention in a very noisy environment and help get them to act with a bit more consistency. So a bit about me is kind of repeating what Lucy said, really. So I build email campaigns that turn prospects into sales for digital products. So that means training courses, information products, a few software type products as well. And I've been doing it for longer than I really want to admit, really. I started with direct mail campaigns. And then in the sort of mid and late 90s, I was one of the kind of early pioneers of email marketing. Worked for a couple of kind of predecessors to things like MailChimp before they existed, none of which are around anymore. E2 Communications and Frontwire, kind of long forgotten dinosaurs in the history of email. I've done training on email marketing at places like the Institute of Direct Marketing and Kingston Uni. And like Lucy said, I consult now under the brand of the Conversion Co. A few of the people I've worked for in the past, the first one was actually Longman, English Language Teaching Publishing, who I did my very first campaign for. Quite a lot of publishing companies. I also spent about 10 years doing a lot of work with e-commerce businesses, so online retail stuff. And a couple of other big names like kind of BT, who we built some quite sizable lists for in there as well. So I'm going to kick off proper now. So 3 slides of theory just about like what you're trying to do with a funnel and what happens to your prospect when you do that. Okay. So the first thing is I'm sure people have seen this this acronym, either AIDA or the slightly longer version, AIDA, which stands for attention, interest, desire, conviction, and, well, that's the sale, but that's action. So this is what we're trying to do in our funnels. And by a funnel, I start right the way back at the beginning with either an advert or a piece of content that you've seen, whatever it is that's first made you go, oh, these people might be worth giving my attention to. then you need to kind of hold that interest. So it's, you see kind of people talk about like viral content and memes and things like that, and they're great for getting people's attention, but they don't actually hold their interest very well. So
yeah, it's very goldfish attention span, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, watching Charlie bit my finger for the 15th time, it might be funny, but what do you do after that? You just flick on to the next one. You don't go and, I don't know, try and buy finger guards from Charlie. I've never seen very many good explanations of how that kind of content actually into real dollars. There's a few people who have managed to create adverts like that, but they're fairly few and far between. Then the next step is desire, which means like wanting the thing that you're offering. And that can either be wanting it because in a sort of aspirational way, that it's something that you really want, like a Ferrari or a nice holiday, or it could be because you're trying to avoid something that's horrible that's happening in your life, a kind of painkiller or a solution.
Solve a problem, yeah. You're like, oh, I need that to fix that problem I have.
Yeah, exactly. And I'll talk a bit in a moment about which of those is the most important. Now, all of those things they're really done actually quite quickly at an emotional level. Like, these are all things that you can kind of feel in your gut. And one of the tricks, I think, to becoming a good marketer is spotting that moment when you see an advert or a piece of content or some copy, and you yourself kind of go, ooh, right. And you get that little kind of rush of adrenaline, dopamine, whatever it is, and actually spotting that in yourself and going, oh, they've managed to kind of pique my interest here. And then stepping back and trying to examine how they did that, because all of that stuff goes on very fast at an emotional level. Now, this is one of the other parts to this is done by a guy called Daniel Kahneman, who wrote a book called Thinking Fast and Slow, which is all about these processes of what goes on in the background and you don't really realize it, and then the more logical step. Now, that logical step, which follows up, like if you say, why did you buy that? Lucy, why did you buy that picture that's in the background? Why did you buy that CD? I'm sure you come up with all sorts of logical reasons. But what happens is you're actually creating those things to justify to yourself the decision you already made emotionally.
Correct.
Yeah. And possibly justify it to whoever else might need to share a room with you. Or if it's a particularly large purchase, to your husband or wife who might be questioning what's on the credit card bill. So that's what's going on in that conviction stage, is you're kind of...
You're almost building a case for why you're going to logically justify the emotional purchase or the emotional plan that you have for something. Completely.
And you justify it to yourself, you justify it to the people around you, and also, you've got to, as a marketer, you've got to do that step, because if you don't, that's when things like buyer's remorse creep in. Where people start questioning, they get their credit card bill later and that, did I really need that? And if they haven't told themselves that story and got it really well ingrained, that's when, big refund rates and people going on social media and saying, oh, this is rubbish and I was ripped off, because they won't blame themselves for having made that bad emotional decision at the start and push it elsewhere. So those are the kind of 5 steps that we need to tick off in any funnel, and in that order as well. So this is what your brain's doing on the other side of that. So you've got marketers throwing all these messages at you. And in the meantime, your brain it's actually a very good filtering mechanism, and it's incredibly good at forgetting and ignoring things. People talk about the challenges of, remembering stuff. What the brain's actually designed to do is to filter out loads of stuff. Okay.
Yeah.
And this is like hardwired into us from back when we were kind of reptiles and then monkeys, because otherwise we'd be completely overwhelmed. We'd be taking in all this information and reacting to it, even though we've seen, I'm looking out my window and there's a train that I've just realized has gone past, goes past every day. It's like most of the day I don't recall it ever having gone past, right? It's not a threat to me. It's not a problem. I only think about it now because I'm thinking, oh, I've got my microphone on. Can you hear it? Right? So most of the day, it's like, yeah, I've seen that train every day that I've sat here. Yeah, I've seen that as well. Not interesting. Tuning out. It's the same old stuff. Ooh, right. Now, this is what happens when you're on social media, you're scrolling through. It's what we call the kind of thumb stoppers. You see something that's enough to you to just prick up your ears and go, oh, this is something new. This is something I should pay attention to. Because back when we were monkeys, that could have been a threat to us. So we pay attention to things which could be threats. Right? They're the very first things we pay attention to. is it a snake? And then we try and examine it a bit further, and hopefully it turns out to be something that's not threatening. Maybe it's a green banana and not a green snake, and we're happy and we can carry on. And this is what we're trying to do. So between those two last emotions, like that kind of fear and happiness, those are both motivators to do something, either run away from it or run towards it. Like that green thing on the ground, if it's a snake, run away. If it's a banana, go and grab it. And we do those in different proportions, right? We're much more likely to act on something that's going to cause us pain or a problem than we are on something which is going to bring us pleasure, right? Yeah. If people will actually change their behaviors much more around pain. So this is the stuff that was researched by Daniel Kahneman. There's a source at the bottom of this, and I'll give you a link for these slides at the end of the show. So if anyone wants to check out these other references, they can. So this gives us a challenge, right? Which is that if we present pain to somebody, they're more likely to act on it, but they're also more likely to run away from it.
Yeah.
So
especially if it's something they don't want to be reminded about.
Absolutely. So things like weight loss programs.
I was about to say, going to the gym's got to be high up on that list, hasn't it?
Absolutely classic.
It's like, absolutely classic.
Really want to think about it.
I don't really want to think about it hurting and getting, worn out, and or going out running in the cold. And I'd love to win the marathon. I'd love to finish and get the medal, but like the thought of the 5-hour runs in the sleet and no.
Absolutely. And you have to be very careful about how you present it to somebody, because you don't want to be the messenger that gets shot. You don't want to be the person that's making somebody feel bad and they'll just run away from you. But also, if you just talk about, you could be the body beautiful and the beach ready babe. Actually, if people are kind of relatively content, they won't put the work in to get to that point. So you've got to go, you're a big fat slob before they'll actually do anything about it, or make them kind of wake up to that fact and focus on that problem, because otherwise what will happen is something else will come along, and they'll have some other issue to deal with.
A bigger problem, like
the kids are screaming or their boss is being a pain in the backside or whatever. They'll have another issue to deal with if you can't focus them on it. Okay. So how do we introduce pain as a motivator without repelling the prospect away from us? So just recap on that process again. We've got to get their attention, keep their interest, create a desire for whatever solution you're providing, rationally help them convince themselves that they need it. And then if you set all of those things up, then the action step is relatively simple. So things like, a checkout is really just the way that we take away that final barrier between us getting some money and them getting the product. Okay. So if all of those steps have been done before, that should be relatively frictionless. And
the pain thing, just to bring up again, is, most of us in business do solve problems. We are taking a pain away. We're making something, easier or better or quicker or faster or something. I mean, Statzy takes away a pain of time and fat and all those things. But like, if you keep reminding people of pain, like you also from a branding perspective and a marketing perspective, don't really necessarily want to be seen as that being your position in the market as well. It's not nice to be the one who's just, showing up and being grumpy all the time and telling people how bad things
are. You don't want to be the kind of nanny state of marketers. I can't really think of a situation where that's ever been successful.
It's not a good look, is it? No. But it works, and that's the frustration, and that's what we're talking about now, isn't it? And how we can solve that. It's how do you find that balance of knowing that that's actually the best way to market, to tell people you can solve their problem and talk about the pain you're going to take away, without actually showing up as the nanny state killjoy who wants to talk about all the painful stuff all the time.
Yeah, so that's absolutely right. So with each of the, and there's a specific point within all of this when you need to bring that up and then bring the solution away. So that's what we'll get to. So step one, I'm going to go right back to the beginning and give a campaign example, a couple of ad examples that show you what these look like in reality.
And just to put this in context, this isn't necessarily for selling something immediately. This could just be how you want to get people to get your lead magnet. It could be, that's what you're selling, is getting people on your list. It's not it is also for selling the thing that you sell as well, but this is exactly the same principle for selling.
Yeah, so actually, unless you're talking about this, that's an interesting point you bring up there. If you're selling, like, if you think the shortest possible funnel, right, is probably an ad, a product page on an e-commerce site, and a checkout. And for most impulse purchases, like, that can be enough for a small gift. It doesn't, as long as there's not much risk to it, and the amount of money is kind of disposable. Those kind of things. That's all you need. You can see. You see an advert for an amusing mug or something for the office. You think that might be fun to have. And
right, it's 10 quid. Job done.
That's all you've got. So you've got their you've got their attention. You've managed to hold their interest for long enough to click onto the ad and read through the copy, make sure it can actually be delivered and all the practicalities of it. They've got a desire for it. It looks nice. They've decided they want it. These things don't need to be enormous, life-changing emotions if you're talking about small products. They've convinced themselves that they want it. Like, you have a look at the site, you realise it's not a scam. They're not going to steal your credit card. There's really nothing to be lost from it. So that conviction step is minute. And then you give them the action, which is a buy now button and a credit card page, and that's it. So these can be very, very small cycles. But if you're trying to sell a large purchase, something which either leads a lot of money, or sometimes it can be a lot of commitment. So my gym membership, in the grand scheme of things, is not an awful lot of money. It takes me an hour or two each month to earn the money to pay for it. But to go 4 times a week consistently in order to burn off all of the beers that I drink on the weekend is quite a lot more commitment in time. So it needs a lot more. That whole cycle of convincing me that I need to do it and get me to stick at it is a lot bigger. So you're absolutely right. It's used in a kind of micro type way, just to get, there's one little conversion at the start of these processes where the person turns from being a browser into a lead on an email list. And then there's a much bigger one as you actually get them to part with the money, but then actually do something so that they get the result that you offer, and hopefully become a good client and an advocate and all the good things that follow that.
And it can go, it can work more than once. So, for example, you get people's attention to get on your email list, and you get their interest and their desire, and they're like, actually, I want to get your lead magnet because that's helpful and solves a problem. And then once they're on the list, you have to start this whole process again, which is now you're going to need to get their attention again to get their interest and their desire to take action on the thing that you're actually selling. So it's important.
That's one of the reasons why this process we go through, and you'll see it can actually go from start to finish without going in and out of people's inboxes, and without big pauses, and without letting other distractions drop into the middle. So up to a certain size of product, that can work quite well. It won't necessarily work for something huge that costs tens of thousands, but it can certainly be a relatively significant size.
Great.
So how do we get someone's attention? So first of all, like, it's new, it's unusual. These are some other kind of, competitors to ours that come up with some quite nice ads. They use a lot of these kind of just odd photography and things. Now, the problem with those, I think, is that whilst it will grab your attention, it needs quite a lot of processing power to go, like, what's this got to do?
What are they talking about? Yeah.
What are they on about? It's quite, they do get a lot of just people stop and look at the ads. And because these are mostly retargeting things, I know who they are. I'm like, okay, it's the guys from Traffic and Funnels. They're relatively humorous. I'll read that and carry on. But if you're not quite sure what's going on, it can be seen as a bit of a threat, in that kind of monkey brain type thing. So what we try and do is to find something that person already wants and try and find a way of putting a spin on it so it's unique, or even making it free. So it's like, ooh, shiny thing, I want to jump on that. Okay.
Yeah.
So the example we're going to talk about, it's a productivity course, and it talks about developing, good time management habits and structuring your day. It's got some stuff about goal setting in there. It's got some things about environment, which are kind of your workplace, but also, people that you surround yourself with as well. And I did this as a joint venture with another coach who's in the background. And what we did was we started from almost a blank sheet of paper. And we said, right, what's out there that people in this market are being presented with already? And is there a way we can give it away for free? and we saw loads of people selling, you know, lovely looking day planners full of motivational quotes, all the rest of it. We thought, there's lots of these out there and some of them sell quite well. So we literally kind of took a page out of the one that we liked best, redesigned it a bit, which laid it out in a way that we preferred, created it as a PDF and said, right, we're going to give that away. So all of a sudden, there's this kind of thing that's going on in people's head. There's something they recognise, the idea of this day planner, but we're going, no, we're not going to charge you £25 for a leather-bound day planner, which will sit on your desk unopened. We're going to give you this thing for free. So that's instantly, you know, it's exciting. It latches into something they're thinking about already and takes them a step forward. It is a bit of a shiny toy, but we know that if you can get somebody to latch on something that they want, then you can start talking to them about the things they actually need, which we know are actually using the thing. It's like, I can get people to join a gym in January. Can you get them to actually go? You've got to do
can you actually still be there in February?
But you won't get them there in February unless you sign them up in January on the promise of burning off that Christmas pie. Okay.
Yeah.
So Christmas pudding. So that's the thing. Sometimes it's, you know, if you're a real expert in something, you're thinking that's not the way we should set about it. We should start here with this goal setting exercise. Sometimes you can chop yourself off from a lot of people who don't want to hear about that just yet. They want the short-term fix. So sometimes you have to kind of hold your nose a little bit and go, right.
You have to meet, I call it, you just have to meet them where they're at. If that's the thing that they're asking for, you know, show up with it, and you can, you know, give them what they want, and then you can give them what they need afterwards.
Yeah, you won't get to have the conversation about the thing they need unless you help them through the first step.
Unless you've got their attention. Yeah.
So super basic landing page. This went up in an afternoon or less. So all we're really trying to do is provide some continuity between the ads. So same image, same name of the product. Don't overdo it. You know, we tested this out with a few different headlines and stuff. We gave it a different name from the original one that we'd had. And basically, the more stuff we put in, like kind of trying to put testimonials or whatever else, just reduce response rate. So it's just offer it to them, and while they're excited, give them the easiest possible way of handing it over, and then just get out of their way. Really, is
make it, remove the obstacles, make it a smooth experience. Yeah.
So now we've got a happy chimp. Okay. So we've given them something. They're contented. It's good. They've got something they want, and now we can start to build them up. So we've gone through our first little cycle. They've done their first action, and now
people are now on your list, right? They're now on your list, and you've got permission to send them an email because they've got their planner.
So they've got that email. But even before that, we're actually taking them straight the way through this, actually on the site, what we're going to do here. So our next step is that we have these little quizzes or assessments or scorecards, and so this is the next stage of the funnel. So literally, this is the thank you page for the lead magnet. So it says, link to your performance planners being sent in the next couple of minutes. Please check your inbox and email, yada, yada, yada. And then the headline, what's stopping you reaching the peak of your performance potential? So, and we're offering them a little kind of profiling tool, which is it's free, takes a couple of minutes. And we're getting, when we had this page as the landing page for the ad, we were getting relatively low responses to this, like less than 20%, which I would set as anything less than that is unacceptable to me as far as I'm concerned for list building. When we put this behind the lead magnet, we were getting more like 60% of the people who had done the lead magnet filling this in. So overall, we were getting a lot more completions. It's a relatively long questionnaire that gives us a massive data about what they're good and bad at in their productivity kind of lifestyle. So that curiosity, like what's stopping you, what's really stopping you from getting where you need to be, that's what holds their interest. Curiosity and is a really good way of hanging on to people's interest for a little while longer. So our next step is we give them this, there's a kind of 20-30 question, just yes, no answer that says, you know, these are things that I'm doing. I know what my strengths are. This is how I plan my day. I cut out distractions, all these kind of things. And at the end of it, we take their details. We can do this if we've got their email address already. And we also ask them at this point, before we've given them the results, what aspect of productivity do you need most help with? So we asked them a little bit of feedback. Now, I don't know if you've seen this crop up in a lot of email campaigns where the first email you get, it's, please tell me what your biggest hurdle to achieving success is. So yada, yada. And I'd be like, I don't really want to tell you.
Yeah, I don't know who you are and what you're going to do with this. Yeah.
And if I knew what the problem was, I'd probably be working on it already.
Correct.
But we asked them this question, and we get much, much better response from this than I've ever seen out of those kind of email responses, because they're just in the flow of giving you information at that point.
Yeah.
And they're
desperate. They just had to answer 20, 30 questions, so they've been thinking about it. Yeah.
And that's the thing. That's the biggest thing about this whole process is it's holding their attention on that subject for a long time. And if you hold somebody's attention on any subject, it starts to rise up in importance in their world. So, next step, we're going to tell them, but using their own data, what their problem is. So we're not the messenger. They're not going to shoot the messenger because they put the answers in. All we're going to do is reflect that back as a summary, and then we're going to give them a solution to it really quickly. So this is crunched down a little bit, but I'll explain what this does. So we have the course has kind of 3 parts to it. There's a goal setting part, thing about environment, and thing about systems and habits. So we give them a little chart on that, and people's natural inclination is to look at their weak point and go, oh, I need to level up on this part of it. So we show them that, we explain what each of these bits mean relatively quickly. And then there is see here, your opportunity for improvement, euphemism for your problem, is your environment. And then how to improve your environment skills. And we adapt the copy from this, but you can actually have totally separate offers at the bottom of here, but we've just adapted the copy to focus on that one particular aspect of their productivity. So we've focused them on a problem that they've got, their weak spot, but we're also giving them a route, and that's their data that did that. So they're not going to, it's kind of undeniable proof that's what the problem is, but we're giving them a get out straight away. And then that leads on to sales letter and then onto the checkout. Okay. So that's clear what we're trying to do so far. And this is all stepped through actually on the website. You're absolutely right. So they opt in at the start for the lead magnet. Sorry, started off with a Facebook ad. They opt in for the lead magnet, and in the background, there's an email that gets sent out, which gives them their lead. Oh, that's a bit wrong there. The free guide, the planner. They get the questionnaire and data capture report. Report sends them off to a variable call to action, sends them to the sales page. So sometimes, if you've got some good copy resource, you can even put different sales pages up for the same product, but basically focusing on different aspects of it. And then the last bit is the checkout. So if we relate that back to our AIDCA thing, we've kind of, like we said, gone through that cycle at the start for the first conversion of just getting their email address, and then carried it on. We've kept their curiosity and interest through using that quiz, promising them some insight about themselves. By showing them where their problem is, we've helped ramp up that kind of pain and the desire for a solution. The sales page will reiterate that, but that'll have all the logical stuff in it about why they should buy the product and give them that conviction. And then action is just their checkout step, and they get access to the product. Right
so now, I think a key thing for me here, and what I think you do differently, is I do see a lot of quizzes and scorecards and other things, but I see them right at the beginning as a lead magnet. And something just to go back to what you said earlier, which is really interesting, is when you had the quiz or the scorecard immediately as the lead magnet, as the, this is what we're talking about on Facebook ads, or go straight here and find out your score for this, or that actually the uptake of that was a lot lower than if you met them where they already were with a lead magnet that they wanted right now that solved the pain they were in, because they didn't necessarily know they were in all this other pain, but they were like, oh no, but I want a planner, they look good, I want one of those. So you give them the planner, and then that goes into the scorecard. And I think, and you were saying the uptake on that was so much higher. I think that's a really interesting point as well, because if you're it's almost like you're leaping straight into the 20, 30 questions. It's quite a big ask rather than going, do you want the thing that I already know you want? Here it is for free.
Yeah, I think there's a few variants of this that I've seen around the place that can work quite well. I mean, we all know about the kind of personality quizzes,
Yeah.
The kind of Myers-Briggs stuff, and there's a great site out there that administers those, and people know what they are and they know what kind of insight they're going to get, and they go looking for that is the most important thing.
But that's the point, isn't it? It's meeting them where they're at. Like if you already know you want to find out what type you are, or you want to know, I don't know what body shape you are or something like that, then you're looking for that. I think what's really important here is you knew that people weren't necessarily looking for, why am I not, performing
if you're on, I mean, this is one of the things about, I think particularly pretty much anything other than Google AdWords, to be honest, is that most forms of advertising most of the ways that you get in front of people are interrupted, right? So people are flicking through their news feed, and most adverts are a bit of an annoyance.
Yeah.
So first of all is you've got to come up with something that's not an annoyance and that they're happy to be distracted from their distraction with.
Yeah.
So,
like, free thing of something I already want. Brilliant. I'll do that. Yeah.
I was already thinking about that. Off we go. So that's the first thing. And then you can bring them in an environment like Facebook, which is very kind of highlight reel, and it's all very kind of like happy and positive.
The same would be Instagram, I expect as well. Instagram ads.
Absolutely. I mean, when was the last time you ever saw a car insurance advert on Facebook? It just doesn't, because they're driven by fear. They're driven by fear of crashes and theft.
Yeah.
They don't go down very well. So it's really important that you meet the people not just with the right subject matter, but with the right kind of tone as well, that it's sort of positive and helpful and move into that. So there's also, people are wary about their privacy. There's a natural reaction of, why do you want to know this?
Yeah, and what are you going to do with all the answers, more to the point? I'm about to answer 30 questions. Who are you and where are they going to go?
Yeah. And am I actually going to get something worthwhile at the end of this? Or is it just going to be, thank you, one of our sales reps will call you back in 20 minutes. So that's where I think a lot of these fall down. I've seen some where all that data's up front. They're asked because they want the lead more than they want the information. So they're asking for telephone numbers on the first page. And I think those are really very sales driven.
And again, that goes back to know your customer, know where they're at, know what if they're at that stage. If you know that when someone's ready to buy, they will happily give you all of that information, then go ahead. But if you're trying to just grab, like you've been showing us, grab someone's attention, get their interest, create, let them, remind them that there's this desire to solve this problem, then this is a much, much more effective way of doing that.
Yeah, this is much more about driving. It rewards the customer with some insight into themselves. So this works particularly well in kind of self-development type markets, where people are really into kind of discovering more about their own aptitudes or their own skills. It works fantastically well in that kind of environment. So I think in those kind of places it works really, really well.
But I could see this working in product environment as well. It's like what car, which car is right for you, or what
You're right.
you need, or something really practical. I think it could apply there as well.
One of the things that I did, and this is quite a long time ago now, but one of the things that I did that kind of, I guess it had just been sat there germinating amongst my grey matter, and then kind of rose up, made me think about it for this funnel, was a long time ago, I built the e-commerce site for a running shoe company. And running shoe retailer, sorry. So they had quite a big range of shoes. And what they wanted to do was come up with the experience that you get when you walk into a shop and you say, I'm going to do the Kingston 10K run.
Yeah.
What should I, and I need a pair of running shoes. And they would look at your, things like
gait and get you on the treadmill and
how often you train. I can't remember what these things are. Anyway, so we went through a process a bit like that. And it was a kind of filtering thing. And at the end, they'd say, here's the 2 or 3 brands of shoe that we recommend, and you pick one based on price, colour, whatever else you're interested in. So it can work as a good kind of filtering process for a product as well. If you've got to make a choice between some relatively similar products, it's a good process for something like that.
And it can be done to educate people as well. So the running shoe example is actually a really good one, because we do have a proper running shop, and I do go and buy proper running shoes when I want running shoes. And sometimes you don't know the question to ask. You don't know to ask, you know, are you going to be running on pavement or sand or off-road on gravel, or, you know, you're doing a lot of hills, and what's your gait and how many hours a week you're going to be running, and all those kind of things. You don't know to ask those questions. So actually by asking them, people are suddenly more educated so that they're more ready to buy, because they feel they're like, oh, well, I know what all the important questions are and I've answered them, or you've helped me answer them.
Yeah. And actually, some of these, we did one of these for our own business a while ago, and I showed it to a friend of mine, like kind of work colleague, and he said that one of the reasons he found it so valuable was just by seeing the questions. It was all about, are you doing this thing? Are you doing this thing? You know, are you doing this thing well? And he was just like, no, I'm not. I know I should be. No, I'm not. I know I should be. And he said, just the questions themselves were a reminder of all the bits. And he did quite well, actually.
All the things you're supposed to be doing. Yeah.
He was so focused on all of the little things where he said no, he totally forgot that he actually scored quite well.
Yeah.
And did okay. And I went, and I could see his questions. And when it came to a conversation, because this thing was leading up to a sales conversation, not an online purchase, I could go, well, you've got, you know, this, and this. We could do that for you straight away. So that worked really well. And he said, yeah, actually, you can get some value about just knowing what questions to ask.
Yeah, and knowing what your gap is, and knowing what problems you have that need solving, or what the gap is. And like you said, and if there's a way to close that, I mean, that's just classic sales, isn't it? Get people to, if you're having a conversation with them, you get, that's what you want to get to. You want to talk about, right, where are you now? Where do you want to get to? What's the gap? How are we going to close the gap? And this is the online way of doing that without you having the conversation, really, isn't it?
Yeah, and without feeling like you're being, interrogated under a spotlight by a salesperson for their own benefit, really. The really important thing about this is, there's lots and lots of ways of gathering data off people online. But the thing that gets people to go through it is that promise of some kind of insight that will help them straight away. They don't need to get on a phone call. They don't need people like having the power themselves. It's very much switched.
Yeah.
People don't want to, be talking to salespeople until they know roughly what kind of solution they're after. And then they're trying to get kind of fine-tuned stuff. When I hear this all the time from sales guys, they go, if I can get them on the phone, I can always close them. And I'm thinking, yeah, that's probably because people don't get on the phone.
That's the very last thing anyone does these days, is get on the phone. You get on the phone because you've probably got just those last two questions you couldn't find anywhere on the website that you need answered before you buy.
And you're kind of ready to buy. Yeah. You want to know if there's some options that you haven't quite seen.
Exactly.
And there you go. Maybe that's just me.
But that's
do sales calls.
If you've been through a good, and that goes back to why people want to be on your list and how you can educate them. And this goes back to, content marketing and making sure people have got all the answers to the questions, and you've, handled their objections, for want of a better way of describing it, because you've given them the answers, or given them some case studies or examples of other people who've thought that and now, went ahead and did it anyway. And this is the result, and isn't life great? And this helps people to get through that a lot quicker, isn't it? That's basically what you're doing, is you're giving them the, look, here's what you need, here's what you don't need, and here's where you are, and here's how we can fix that.
And it plays into a tendency that people have anyway, which is to kind of self-diagnose. Well, I don't know if you've probably had this, when you have people approaching you for a product or a service, and they kind of, I certainly get it, where people have, there's so many books out there about creating marketing funnels and building email lists, that sometimes I need to kind of talk them down from the parapet of stuff that they've read from, I won't name them, we all
know them. Yeah.
And just go, yeah, you're not really there. Those things work because these guys have got multi-million lists. They've got armies of affiliates.
They've been doing A/B split testing for 10 years.
Let's get back down to, day one, we'll get an email, we'll find the shortest way of getting them up to, understanding what their problem is and wanting to fix that. And, in a small sale. And then actually, there are one or two short other slides. Part of it is actually about getting the data back from the first time you run one of these funnels. So I said I'm going to share a link to the slides afterwards. There's some of the numbers from it. We've got some excellent results after we'd kind of tested some of these things up. But what we also got was what I call data before dollars. So data before dollars means that when you first start gathering, data from the point of view of gathering email addresses, also look at the information you get with it. So this program we were talking about, this productivity product, had kind of 3 parts, like set your goals, develop some good habits around completing them, and then it had some things that were higher level bits about, your work environment and the people around you. And we'd started pushing it with, goal setting, which was step 1 to us, seems logical. Turns out everybody thinks they're great at goal setting, but can't stick at the habits. Now, we think that that's because people are picking the wrong goals. But again, you've got to have the conversation with people and sell them what they want before you can sell them what they need. So we kind of have now retooled, or in the process of retooling the kind of the sales letters much more around this than the whole idea of you need to be setting the right goals, which is where we started out from. The other thing that came out of this was, you remember, let me just flick back right back on this page, we asked about, what do you need most help with? We've seen that question in email campaigns. So normally you get your email magnet and then you get that question in one of the first campaigns, and you don't get very good response to it, to be honest. And it's also a bit, well, I don't really know what my problem is. We get really good responses to that at the end of that questionnaire because they're just in data giving mode.
Yeah.
And we got this little word cloud of all the stuff that was in there. So we've now got a whole bunch of, real words and phrases that are being used by our prospects, all about how they describe it. And we were quite interested because time management, we don't really talk about time management anymore. We talk about things like productivity hacks and lots of other phrases. And we kind of thought, oh, time management's a bit old hat. I remember going on time management courses when I was a graduate back in the 90s. But actually, that's the most common phrase that people use when they're describing that process. So we started using that, and again, this is one of the.
But when you say start using this, just to clarify, I mean this is copywriting gold. Okay, this is like rule 101 of copywriting. Is if you can repeat back to your ideal clients and prospects the language they're using, so that they recognise, like, oh no, that's the thing I have a problem with. It's procrastinating, or like you said, it's time management. Then they're going to pay attention. So what you're actually saying here is you can make your own funnel even better in the ad copy or the headlines or the emails that are going out in the campaigns, because you're going to be able to start using the words that people are using themselves. Therefore, they're more likely to engage.
Of course, we've got access to the kind of real responses. But this is just a nice visual way of going,
great.
Time management and focus are the big things that people use those words a lot, and your copy will,
that's what they're looking for. That's what they wake up in the morning thinking, how do I focus more, or my time management's terrible.
And they get to the end of the day and go, I haven't done anything on my to-do list. I haven't managed to stay focused.
Why have I been procrastinating? I can see quite a lot of those in there.
Motivation and discipline and things. So actually that whole process of getting that little bit of extra data out of them that's unstructured. I mean, a lot of people shy away from just, please write a big bunch of stuff about what you're feeling, because you can't put it in pretty charts and things. But actually you can do quite a lot with that. And when you find a way of getting a good volume of those responses back from people, you should absolutely jump on it, because it will transform the quality of your copy. So that's been an enormous help to us in going, well, what do we actually focus this new sales letter around, and what do we focus all the follow, because we don't get everybody on this. I think we're getting around 4%, so that's still 90% who we need to put follow-up emails and potentially other products in front of them, other partnerships, whatever else it might be. So we literally just went down this list and said, okay, we're going to do an email about time management, we're going to do an email about maintaining focus, we're going to do an email about planning, and just work our way through this and just hit all those hot buttons in the follow-up campaigns.
Right. As a marketer, that makes me very happy, because it makes your job a lot easier, because what you think people want isn't necessarily what they really want. And if they're telling you, then use it. That's exactly what this process is about as well. It's about giving them what they want, and then finding out more about what they want and getting them to realize that they want it as well.
Yeah, these feedback loops are fantastic. We did this. I discovered this quite a long time ago. It was actually part of a webinar funnel we built for somebody, where we had just after somebody had registered for the webinar, we asked them about this and said, what are you struggling with? We'll try and answer as many questions in the webinar as possible. And we just got tons of it. I mean, we weren't used to getting more than 1 or 2% responses to the emails about this. But when we asked it just after somebody had done something, they just registered for a webinar, and we said, thanks very much for signing up. Here's all the guff about when it's going to happen. Tell us what you're struggling with and what you've tried before, and we'll try and answer that in the Q&A. And we just got reams of it, and we handed it to our email copywriter, and he just was just gobsmacked. He said, nobody ever gives me this stuff. I'm just trying to do all the research myself. He said, this is amazing. So it was fantastic stuff. So yes, absolutely, really, really big. Don't just get data that you can draw charts and get numbers out of. Think about the unstructured and the things you say as well. So
brilliant.
Okay.
Brilliant. So I was going to say, have you got a summary for us? What's going to happen?
So quick. So the big takeaways from this are right from the start. If you can give away something that your competitors are selling, then you'll be giving away something that they probably already want. Something small. If not, try and think about what's in their mind already. If you're trying to get information out of people, use curiosity to kind of hold their interest on it. But tell them what they're going to get from it. What are they going to get immediately? If you don't just gather kind of data for later and things that may or may not get used. Tell them, if you tell me this, I can tell you that. Be very clear about what they're going to get. Use that data themselves to reveal their pain. So you're not being the messenger that's going to get shot. When they get those results, it's, I said those things, and that you can't
argue with yourself.
Words but provide, if you're providing the pain, make sure you're providing the painkiller as it is in the same step. And then remember, right at the start of the campaign, it's more important to gather feedback than it is to gain revenue for the first few weeks, first few dozen, maybe 100 or so responses.
Yeah.
Really about getting feedback rather than just focusing on, I've got to sell this thing. Leave that for, if you can go through a round of getting some feedback, improving the campaign, then you can do a kind of big launch style thing with partners and everybody else and be much more assured that it's going to work.
Brilliant.
If anyone wants the slides, wants to check out the various references and tools and things and see all the speaker notes in there that have got the links to these pages, that's the URL to it. So it's theconversion.co. That's right, it's not a typo, it's not .co.uk, it's just .co/Statzy.
Brilliant.
And you'll get the slides with the speaker notes straight away. And then sometime shortly, hopefully next week, I'm doing a little mini course of just a few videos on how to create these quiz-based funnels and some tools you can use. And
that's really helpful.
How you work out what questions to use in them.
That's really cool. Brilliant. Wow. Thank you for that. That's, it's really nice that we've got a mix of information from the very kind of basic, we've got lots of little quick tips and hints of just reminding people that they should be on your mailing list or to get your lead magnet, and we've taken that all the way through to building really effective funnels as well that aren't just about the lead magnet, but what you can do as part of that process is going to get you so much better results. So I mean, I think this is really clever, and I know it's made a massive difference to lots of different businesses that you've used it in. So if you can see that there's a gap yourself that you can help close in your own funnel, then I'm sure Stephen will be happy to answer any questions and based on what we've talked about today.
Absolutely. Always happy to kind of have a chat, look at things that people have got in place already, because to be honest, that's how I get the ideas for these things, spark new stuff, seeing where I'll learn as much from any of my customers as I ever teach them, I think.
Brilliant. Just don't tell them that. Brilliant.
So I was really keen to just kind of look at what people have got in place and see how we can.
Yeah. And that's something as well, like again, and I think that's a good thing to end on actually, is that, we touched on it right at the beginning, that as a marketeer, quite often you're, looking for different ideas, or you're going, oh, why has that got my attention? Don't just Don't just see what gets your attention. You know, if it's a good funnel, if it's a good little marketing journey that you're taking on and you're asked these types of things, or you're asked to participate or share more information, like make a note of that and think about what's made you participate in it, because that's probably going to help you with your own stuff too. Always pay attention to what everyone else is up to, and then just, you know, in fact, your lead magnet started like that, didn't it? You said, you know, you looked at everything that everyone was paying for and you took what you felt was the best version, and then you made your, you know, improvements or edits or changes to that. That's, you know,
we just waited until we saw something where we said, "Oh, I want one of those."
Exactly. And then you're like, "Oh, but I want to feel like this." And that, you know, and there's nothing wrong with that. If you can create that as your lead magnet, that's a really good place to start. Brilliant. Perfect. All right, brilliant. Thank you so much for joining us. I will make sure.
Thanks for giving me so much time, Lucy.
We've got the links, and brilliant. Loads of great content there. Thank you.